What's going on, guys? It's Greg here today, and I'm bringing you a Call of Duty Vanguard gameplay commentary. And I'm going to be spilling out some of the secret sauce to earning high-scoring gameplays, kill streaks, V2 rockets, and more against anybody in your lobby. Now, this is some solo gameplay from back in Season 1. And while no one, on the other team, I would say, was really sweaty, maybe there was a couple guys that knew what was going on. It's just kind of like a normal COD lobby. I want to spill this secret sauce because I've nuked parties, good players, pro players even. There's videos on the channel of that. Pretty much been around the block, and I've also gotten my fair share of nukes put up against me. I would say, like, trying to think, Modern Warfare 2019, I think I got nuked 3 times. Cold War, I don't think I did. And then this game, I got nuked twice, I want to say. I know one was I know they were while I was going for Atomic, but I almost got nuked a few times while I wasn't actively going for it. And I'm going to actually share the secret sauce, because what's funny is how I nuke these players and how they nuke me, it's all the same, right? So I'm going to show you guys the secret sauce. So if you got that sweaty player in your lobby and you want to try to get a nuke on them, I'm going to go ahead and tell you the secret sauce of how it's done. So let's go ahead and get right into this video, shall we? Alright, so first things first, the number one tip is already understanding the spawns and how they work in Call of Duty Vanguard. Generally, if, let's say, a top 1% pub stomper is going up against a top 1% pub player, all right, I actually don't want to use the term pub stomper, I'd rather use the term pub player. So let's say a top 1% pub player goes up against another top 1% pub player. Both of them know, well, it's more than likely, both of them know all the spawns in the game, right? Like all the maps that they play, all the spawn locations and how the spawns work in each game mode. Chances are they know exactly where the enemy spawn points are depending on their team's positioning and all that kind of stuff. So if you already don't know the spawns on the map, it's not going to happen. You need to learn those spawns. So that is tip number 1, okay? Now, if you know the spawns, you know that another good pub player is going to try to hold down an area where there's going to be a lot of traffic, or they're going to put themselves in the mix and try to flank spawns and try to get easy picks off of other players that are freshly spawning in. So that's generally going to be the area where the other players are, but not always. So it's kind of like a 50-50 mix, because it really also depends on the traffic of 1, your team, and 2, their team. So every match plays different, but there is some way that you can predict how enemy players are going to be playing, and there is a perk actually in this game that will help you give that spawn information, and that is the forward intel perk, because if players aren't running cold-blooded, there will be a little diamond that shows up on your minimap whenever someone spawns in that is in like a new spawn location. So you guys can see that all throughout this gameplay. There's like these little diamonds popping up on the minimap, and that is the forward intel perk. Another thing people are going to be using is the ghost perk. So whenever there's a spy plane called in, you're not going to be able to see that player on the minimap, because they're trying to stay alive as possible, and more than likely they're flanking your teammates and they're trying to stay pretty much, as the perk states, a ghost. They're not wanting to be found. They're going to be trying to get away from positions that might be compromised by other players that are, trying to hunt them down or whatnot. So ghost is another very common perk that a lot of people use whenever they're trying to drop nukes or trying to stay alive for a very long time and get more streaks. And another thing is they're probably going to be running something that's going to be a really try-hard weapon, something that deals high damage per second, kills really fast, like I'm talking 3-4 bullets, sometimes even 2 bullets, and it has a time to kill of around 150 to 200 milliseconds. They're not going to be using a gun that sucks like the AS-44. So in other words, what I'm trying to say here is, if there's someone in your lobby that's sweating with a good gun, you're just doing yourself a disservice to not also use a sweaty gun that's going to be competitive with what they're using, because if you do happen to run into them, well, the gunfight's already in their favor because they're using a sweaty gun and you're not. So, yeah. Anyways, let's go ahead and talk about how it's really done. Now that you guys know that you're going to have to use a sweaty class, you're going to have to use spawns of your knowledge. So, with just that information, how can you nuke a good player? Well, it's actually really easy. All you have to do is just get the first local informants in the match, and that's going to be the 12 kill streak. If you're capable of earning local informants consistently, then you should have no problem, honestly, doing this, especially if that person is solo on the other team or in a small party. And by small party, I mean like a party of like, I would say no more than 4 in Blitz game modes, because in Blitz, there's 10 to 14 people on the other team, and you can easily get a nuke off of, like, literally 5 people in the lobby, and, yeah, that's pretty much where we're going to go with the rest of this commentary, because it's all about getting that local informants and creating foot traffic in your own lobby to your location that you're farming from. So let's go ahead and get into that now. Alright, so now that you know that you need to be running the enemy spawn, and you also need to be creating foot traffic for yourself of the enemies and trying to get them to come back to you, and you also know that you need to run the local informants, as well as a good gun, let's talk about the last part of the puzzle. The last part of the puzzle is understanding your enemies and where they're going to be. Good players, like I said, are going to be trying to push your spawns, and they're also going to be trying to hold map control. So if you can run through a flank and not encounter that good player and start farming the bad players on the enemy team or their weakest links, you can create the weakest links to generally understand, like, hey, there's a guy over here, I'm going to go back for him because he's killed me a lot. And generally, you're a lot better than those players, so you can go ahead and just easily start farming them. And generally, I would say that if you're playing up against even a 6-man party, sometimes it's very rare, but sometimes there are just those players on their team that you could easily farm 4 or 5 of those enemy teams. Like, let's say you're playing a domination GFHutchinson, right? And it's a there's like 8 people on the other team, right? Since you're going up against 6 stack, there's 14 people in a GFHutchinson match on each team. You could easily farm those 8 players pretty quickly off 1 local informant and get a V2 on them before the enemies even have time to start calling out like, hey, this guy's on a big streak. So it really comes down to 1, lobby luck, 2, that the enemy players that have, like, or let's just say like the good player that's on the other team, they have really bad teammates, and 9 out of 10 times with how skill-based matchmaking goes, their teammates are probably not going to be the brightest cookies in the jar. That's just kind of how it goes. Skill-based matchmaking is more of a team balancing thing where it tries to put like good players in the lobby, but it's only going to have a couple good players for each lobby, and then it's just a matter of who has the worst teammates. So if that enemy team has those worst teammates, right, and you understand that those enemy players, maybe they're all just kind of lurking their spawn, they're not pushing up from map control, the only people that are pushing up from map control or towards your spawn are the actual like sweaties that are in the lobby, then you can capitalize on that by running a flank and pretty much getting instantly towards the enemy spawn with a suppressor and forward intel, like I said, so you can get yourself that first local informants really easily. And yeah, so the dogs and the counter spy plane are also going to help you out a lot, and the best thing you can do is try to avoid anybody that's partied up together, and just don't shoot at players that are partied up together, or just try not to like, or try to flank like right after killing them, because they're probably going to call you out if you start streaking on them. And that's why it's easier to do this against a smaller party, but it's definitely not impossible against like a 6-man or something, because I've done it before, and I'm telling you right now that if you could just farm their weakest links before they even catch on to you or that you're streaking, that you'll be able to easily get them. And this game, it's actually a little bit easier to go ahead and get these nukes against good players, because the information bar that pops up where it says like what kind of kill streak the enemies are on and all that is super behind. And in Blitz lobbies, there's a lot of action going on, a lot of triple kills, a lot of quad kills and all that kind of stuff. So that keeps popping up in the top right. And half the time whenever a player, it says they're on a 15 or 20 kill streak, especially in the 14v14 matches, they already actually have their V2 by the time that pops up. So yeah, it's actually pretty easy to fall right through if no one's really paying attention to you streaking. So it's actually a lot easier than you think. Oh, and there's actually one more super helpful tip that I'll give you guys that works all the time. It actually is what sells me whenever I'm going against other good players, is whenever I finally start to streak up again and I realize what's going on in the lobby, they just call up their dogs, and the dogs always mess up the flow of the game because I'm not going to be running cold-blooded, and like literally no tryhards run cold-blooded because they're all running Ghost or something of that nature, Dauntless. So as soon as like you catch on that somebody on the other team is starting to streak, or you see their name popping up a lot in a kill feed, you could just grief them with dogs, and then at that point they can't like, you know, farm the enemies anymore because they're got to switch up their positions. So yeah, it's really just about staying off the radar and getting your streaks, and if you get that local informants and dogs, I mean, you're pretty much set, especially if you call in your dogs towards the end of your streak, towards the higher like kills, you know, 18 plus gun streak. It can really help save you on that streak. So yep, that's the secret sauce. Everyone does it, that, you know, whenever you're going up against other good players. At the end of the day, it's pubs, man. Like, I mean, if you nuke good players, like, yeah, you did, but most of the time, like, if you actually look in the, like, gameplay or whatever, you probably only killed those good players, like, I would say less than 5 times, maybe a fifth of your kills for the V2 rocket. So it's really just, you're just farming bad players, and I'm not afraid to admit that at all. Like, it's not really that I'm nuking the good players, it's more necessarily that their bad players are just feeding me the kills. So anyways, hopefully you guys understand that. That's how it really goes in pubs, and yeah, hopefully it has helped you guys out, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.